Jung Mai, Amanda Kite, Kefra Kowalski, and I'm Kirsten Lyons. Our site is the Solve Development in Bloomfield Hills, mostly in Pontiac, on Telegraph Road. The demographics of those two communities are very different in terms of age, income, median home prices. They're also very different in terms of education levels and occupation types. In the region, the land use is predominantly single-family residential. There are several major corporations located nearby, so that's a good thing. And then immediately proximate to our site, there are a couple of really great assets. We have, to the south of our site, we have big box upscale retail. And then to the north of our site, we have a couple of golf courses. In the immediate vicinity, there are no drinking establishments, there are no movie theaters, and there are very few opportunities for sit-down dining. Based on our own observations and with talking with residents and city planners, we came up with a list of uses that were inadequately addressed in the area. And then we chose to focus on several key areas. Entertainment and dining experience that would appeal to a wide variety of audiences and lifestyles. And then retail that in key segments was missing. And residential geared toward the community's older population. And now Mai will review a few of those details about those decisions.
Thank you, Chris. Well, so as Chris said before, we decided to put more theaters here because the nearest movie theater, General Movie Theater, is about 8 miles away, and the nearest IMAX is about 20 miles away. And also the senior apartment, according to our research, about 18% of the Bloomfield population is over 65 years old, and 7% of the Pontiac population is over 65 years old. And the nearest the senior housing is not really what we really wanted to. And the restaurants, there's not a lot good sit-down restaurant near our side. And the fresh market, we decided to put a fresh market in our side because nearest fresh market is about 15 minutes away. And as our research, the majority middle-aged, college-educated people prefer to go to fresh market to shopping instead of go to the shopping malls. So and the bookstore, the nearest bookstore is about 18 minutes away. The bookstore and the fresh market, what we mentioned before, is facing to the market of the Bloomfield people. And the bowling alley, mini golf, and the sports bar, and the wine and the cigar lounge. Those places, people spend a lot of time in this area, but the nearest of these shops or entertainment space is a little bit far from our site, so we decided to put this on our site.
Okay, so now that we decided what we can put on our site, we have some things to deal with on our site. A lot of existing structures, some of them almost completely done, and other ones that would need to be removed just for safety. As we showed you guys at the last presentation, these are some of the existing structures on our site. A lot of them, as you can see, have even to the point where windows and doors are in. Two of the buildings shown on here, some of the steel structure ones, has had exposed steel structure for 4 years straight going through the elements. We are proposing to take down and hopefully reuse the ones that we're going to keep, which means when it comes to phasing, those would have to be done sooner rather than later so that the structural integrity doesn't become compromised. site is huge. It's over 80 acres. The majority of those acres are in Pontiac, a little bit's in Bloomfield, and so they can legally call it Bloomfield something or say that it's in Bloomfield. And the context of Pontiac versus Bloomfield, as Kirsten said, very big differences between the two sides of the property. Above, there's some really nearby residential on the Pontiac side, pretty much adjacent to the site. And on the other side, on the lower part, is houses that are in Bloomfield, just on the other side of the street. And then we decided to not really do a lot of retail because immediately adjacent to our site and across the street is a ton of strip malls. So we thought strip malls would be kind of inappropriate. Good transportation. It's right off Telegraph Road. Fairly easy circulation, to get to Woodward 75 and to get to cities like Pontiac and Bloomfield Hills and Southfield. Not too tough. Existing circulation on the site. There's pedestrian paths between some of the existing buildings. Everything's pretty much concrete on the ground. So we looked at the existing value of the land. There's a lot of good things. It's completely deserted and they want to get rid of it so it can be acquired for renovation. And the existing structure, some of them can be utilized. And this was a $2 billion project previously with a lot of the structure already completed, so why not take advantage of it and use it, not let it all go to waste if it doesn't structurally have to. A lot of acreage. It's a really big commercial area for Bloomfield Township. It's a hub. A lot of people don't really go past the Target and the Costco, but hopefully we would be able with our anchors to draw people in.
So what we've done is a very big site, like Amanda said. And we've got almost two sides to the site. We have an entertainment side, and then we have a lower noise side we've decided to put senior housing. We have housing and apartments around the lake. We have the bookstore and the markets. Then we have our entertainment where we have our theaters, our IMAX and our regular theaters, our putt-putt, and we have bars and restaurants in the middle to draw some of that attraction. The grayed out areas here are future expansion. Right now it's just not feasible because it is such a large site to build all of that up. We do have a little bit of retail, more boutique-y retail, not things that would be found in the strip malls. So there's a potential for retail and restaurants along the street to draw in people as well. The circulation on the site, we wanted to keep around where the bars, the restaurants, the retail, the little bit that we have, we wanted to keep that residential and keep the circulation closer to Telegraph. Some of the buildings there, the tallest building I think is 4 stories, not including the senior housing. So we've got mixed use on all of those levels. We've divided up the buildings. So they're relatively short. The IMAX theater would be probably the tallest of all the buildings besides the senior housing.
And our last presentation, it was looking pretty feasible because we utilized the existing buildings and didn't put on a lot of new construction, but it was brought up that in order to make this work, there's got to be some sort of frontage. And so our new construction, we added in the front with the bookstore and the fresh market. And that kind of hiked up our construction demolition cost quite a bit. We also added a little bit of surface parking, which upped the price a little bit. But as we went through, it's almost a lot of money. It's a lot of money to do. And it would take about 11 years maybe to turn a profit, but we suggest phasing the project. First, putting in the frontage and then starting to fill up some of the existing buildings with the entertainment and the retail and the senior housing. And our conclusion is to hopefully not let this thing go to waste and to turn something that's an eyesore into something positive and kind of bridge these two very different places together and have a place that, I don't know, lets everyone enjoy it and without being an issue for safety or everyone can afford to go spend money there. So that's our goal.
Did you get a price on the existing land and work?
We got the SEV price, which was 57, 11,000. 11,009, but
How much?
11 million.
11 million. They can buy everything there. Is that what it is?
Well, that's the FTV.
That's the
I don't know.
SEV.
Really low.
Huh?
That's less than $200,000 an acre.
Right. That's information from.
I guess they marked the buildings down to 0.
Yeah.
And so
They're actually in
I mean, the
some.
buildings are considered to be a negative.
Yeah.
You go.
Here's the demo cost.
Now, most of the land is in Pontiac, so I don't know if they're valuing it by Pontiac standards. But in Bloomfield, even today, you're going to
There's
spend
only 5 acres.
$400,000 an acre for
Right.
residential land, and you're talking about half that price.
It's only 5 acres though. The rest of it's all
What is it?
I think the city's house should be doubled, isn't it?
Right, but it's in the
actual
market
SEV.
today and how awful that is, we feel like you could almost be able to acquire it.
Even if you doubled the SUV, you still, it's
Right.
24 million to buy the whole
Now,
thing.
where'd you come up with the $91 million?
The $91 million does not include the price of
Is
the
to
property.
finish what's there? Is
That's
that
the
what-
construction demolition cost to finish up the buildings.
You
we're
talked
flipping.
about tearing everything down?
No, just
You
2
want to use
buildings.
what's there?
We're going to use what's there with the
Yeah.
exception of the 2 steel buildings. And that cuts down on
How many
costs.
car parking have they got there?
Oh my gosh, way more than we need. They have 2 5-level parking structures,
Yeah, I
and then
understand.
we
But how many
added.
cars? Did you get a count?
We did not count the cars,
Yeah, all right.
but we did add. We did add surface parking closer to the
Yeah.
frontage, so people wouldn't
I
have to park in
think
the
the weakness in your proposal is a fact as to where you place the tenants. As I recall, you have a couple of sports bar, and all right, now it's tough to tell. The colors are pretty
Do you
close.
have a plan that's easier to
Yeah.
I
make
think
out?
we do.
Plan that we could.
That was a little
That one's
bigger.
not
There you
marked.
go.
Over
A
there.
little bigger.
Where is the
This
movie
is the
theater?
sports bar. This is the IMAX. This is the regular theater. This has got its own parking lot over here.
Oh.
This is the IMAX. This is the putt-putt, so it's kind of
That's
around
what?
the lake.
What's the green one?
The putt-putt.
Mini golf.
Mini golf. Miniature golf. The sports bar, the other bars, this one has a bowling alley in it, nightclub, well not nightclub, restaurants, and a comedy club, entertainment.
You said you weren't going to put retail in because of all the retail next to it. So what?
A little bit of retail. We put some along here.
How many
Figured
square
it
feet of
needed a
retail?
daytime function.
How many square feet of retail do you have?
About 40,000 square feet.
Is how much?
About 40,000 square feet.
40,000.
Service retail.
We left
Yeah, like
all
big
of this for future expansion.
There really isn't any, very, very few feet of frontage on Telegraph. It's, they've got some, they don't show it, but there's some buildings there. There's some half-finished
And this
structures.
little chunk, there's
Yeah, the-
2 little buildings.
They were anticipating the movie theater was one of the big things, the big vacant structure that you would tear down was going to be on Telegraph.
Right.
No,
Well, they just have 2
this is in your neighborhood.
Right.
This is your neighborhood.
Not far.
It's not far from my neighborhood.
No, it's not.
Want to go to the movies?
You know,
But you've researched the voids. Certainly, what you have there is not in the market as you've shown. I don't think a hospital would make sense you have it there because it's right down the road. What we should do, and this is, as Billy said last time, very complicated, one of the toughest ones, because you have that friction between the 2 communities. But these are clearly voids, and you've identified them. What the necessary next step is what we call primary research, where you have to actually, through focus groups or phone surveys or mail surveys, actually ask the residents, would they visit these, and how frequently, and how much would they spend? And that'll give you an idea as to whether or not these uses make sense.
But I mean, do you believe it's an initial? You're saying it's an initial analysis of some market potential. There are.
Yes, and keep in mind, in Pontiac, there are some bars and restaurants that are very high class that are doing very, very well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really call this Pontiac.
No, I know, but I'm saying a lot of people take that.
It's sort of
The previous one was called Bloomfield Park.
sort of
Where
in
is the city
between.
line
It is
in this? Because I think that is actually the city boundary is actually
right
significant.
here in Bloomfield.
So the vast majority of the site is in Pontiac.
Oh yeah,
Because
90%.
to me, what this property really holds out is you can actually say that it's in Bloomfield. I mean, you have to pretend it's
They
in
call it
Bloomfield.
Bloomfield Park.
Well,
They
yeah,
call it
That's what it sounds like.
But you're being taxed like you're in Pontiac.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think that's the benefit is that you're living in Pontiac
Yeah.
with a Bloomfield address.
What is the Costco address? Is it Bloomfield or
Costco is Bloomfield.
Bloomfield? So they're paying the Bloomfield tax.
Yes.
I,
The market would pay a Pontiac.
going back
tax, but
to your
called Bloomfield.
original demographics, I question the circle that you made there because the kinds of uses that you show are not going to draw from that market. Number one, the roads don't work in that direction very well, and that's the first thing.
Right.
You're not going to draw on Bloomfield Hills based on the uses that you have set up there. So those numbers are sort of useless in terms of analyzing
The majority of
demographics
them.
as far as the circle is concerned.
We integrate.
And I think you've done that because you're working out specific off type of uses. And now you got a Lowe's over there, which you didn't show, although you showed a block there, and you have a Costco in the shopping center next door. You have a lot of shops at that center. There's 40 or 50 stores there. It's a big center, strip center, but a big one. This project is not moving, and I think you proved it.
It's a
And
big
no one's
project.
interested in it.
Right. About this.
My recommendation to the city manager was tear it down
Really.
because it's very expensive to tear it
And
down.
at the scale of it, we found since
Pardon?
it is such a large scale, we found that the demo cost really wasn't that much
Yeah.
when you consider how much there is.
Well, the access isn't from where you want it.
Right.
See, if the access came from Bloomfield Hills, and the neighborhood behind you is a third grade neighborhood
Yes.
in terms of the quality.
If this were just on the other
Pardon?
side of the street,
Sorry.
said if it were on the other side of the street, it would be a completely
Yeah,
different
I understand. Well, there isn't
animal.
any
but-
access from there anyway,
Right.
so it's all single access, which again isn't very good.
Without the recession, would this property have
No.
been built and made it at all?
No, I don't know.
It
I don't
would
think
have died
I
anyway.
think this property, I think they proved it by showing it here. It's a property where a banker ought to be fired. That's what it is. Bankers gave them money, not enough, but gave them money to build this, and they lost it. This is bankrupt. And it's bankrupt because these uses that they've shown there really aren't available. Bookstores, per se, are going down this way. Restaurants and bars want some identification from the street, unless you have a large development that can draw from that development. But putting a bar back there, they're going to make it, unless there's a lot of other activity that they can live off. Coffee shops, the same thing, of course. Miniature golf, there's a major golf operation right across the street. Have you seen that? It's a big
Yeah,
operation.
that's a golf course. But
It's a
Carl's
major
golf land,
Huh?
driving range.
Yeah,
It's not a miniature golf.
Right, it's a driving range, right.
Yeah.
right.
That's why we thought miniature.
IMAX theater,
They complement
that's something that isn't in the market. I don't know about it, but might be difficult to come in unless they saw there were a lot of other activities and so forth.
What do you think about senior housing? We're not talking about
Yeah.
senior assisted living necessarily. You're talking
Right,
about-
there's
There is a
there's an
senior
assisted
housing
living right
across
down the street.
But you're talking about housing that caters for seniors. and
Right, we're talking more
seniors.
independent senior living.
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of,
Do you think that's a growing market in the Bloomfield area?
I'm sorry.
Do you think that is a growing market need in the
Oh,
Bloomfield area?
yeah, sure, because people are living older and that's a market. But as they pointed out, there are two in the market right now. There's
Yeah,
one
but
going back
those
across
are
the street.
assisted living, which is really
Yeah.
different. That's Sunrise and
Yeah,
assisted living.
that's all right.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to cut it off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.